We're back. This is the second part of the video, What Happened on Saturday Night, January 27th, 2018. We talked about the cab ride there and the fact that the night was going to be sabotaged by the Illuminati and the gang stalkers who were following me around in my life. What we learned is that I had been put on a waiting list and I was on the same exact spot for 2.5 hours with no movement. I changed to another waiting list that I was promised would be faster and I would be able to get a room faster that night. After about 45 minutes, no change had occurred and I was position number 3. It turns out that what was going on was an attempt to control everything about me. They want to control where I eat, what I eat, where I sleep, how long I sleep, what time I go to bed, what clothes I wear, who I hang out with, who I have any exposure to, what coffee shops I sit in. They try to control whether I have access to electricity to charge my phone, anything and everything. Whether I can buy any gloves, they'll go into a store and remove all of the gloves. They'll go in and remove all of the cell phone accessories. I am controlled nonstop. These people are maniacs and they believe that they control humans and that whatever they do, we have to follow their orders. This is how insane and how violent this is. What they were trying to do on Saturday night was ensure that I had no sleep and I had no sex. So I was not allowed to meet anyone, I was not allowed to hook up, and I was not allowed to have any kind of adult interaction with anyone at all. They wanted to by controlling the time that I was spent on a waiting list and not getting my own room. By the time I was on a waiting list and not getting any sleep, they were able to control the most basic functions of me. By the time this all had occurred and the time at the club had ended and I started to see exactly what was going on, I started feeling highly threatened. I realized that I was being controlled and I was being stalked. And the most basic thing of our humanity, our sexuality, our desires, our need for human companionship and sexuality, our expressiveness, all of those things that an adult, for a healthy, balanced environment, both physically and mentally, all of those things were challenged. And the Illuminati believe that they control me. So I will have sex when they tell me I have sex. I can have sex. I will have it for as long as they tell me I can have it. And I will have it with who they tell me I'm allowed to have it with. My own individuality, my own desires, my own beliefs, my own interactions, and my say of when I do and when I don't engage in any adult interactions with another adult are mine. I believe that they have been given to me, my free will has been given to me by a divine creator, and my sexuality is a gift and is part of me. No one is allowed to have any interference with who or where or what I engage in any kind of sexual activity with any other adult. No one is allowed to interfere in that or give an opinion except for me and the other person who either I'm dating or just meeting for an evening or just meeting at a bar for a first time blind date. Any of those situations, only I am able to control or should be able to. No one else. Unfortunately, that's not how my life is run right now. And the reason why I'm bringing this up and being frank with you is we need to know what the mindset is and that these people are going to control every aspect of our lives, including our intimate relationships, our marriages, our who we have, whether we have families, all of that is impacted. By the end of the evening, I saw that whether I had sex with someone or whether I met with someone, how long I was with them, and where I went with them was not my control. It was up to the Illuminati. They were going to control everything. Naturally, as I realized this, I started getting more and more tense. I felt more and more claustrophobic, and I had shortness of breath. I decided I had to leave and forego the bed and forego everything. I just needed to get out of the building and I needed fresh air. So I left. I was shaking. I was crying because I realized that these people had not only starved me to death and made me sleep outside in the cold and had stolen all of my clothes and all of my possessions and had taken my job and my sister away from me. They had stolen everything. The only remaining thing that was left were my thoughts and my desires. And now they're trying to control them. Whether I had a sexual fantasy in the cab ride on the way down to spend a Saturday night evening was destroyed. They would not let me have a fantasy. They would not let me express any sexual urges. They would not let me have any kind of thoughts relating to my humanity and the sexuality that I believe that has been given to us. None of that was in my control. It was going to be in theirs. I started shaking and I realized that I was being violated. And the reason I was shaking and crying by the time I got out was the fact that I had been violently violated. My innermost thoughts and emotions and desires were not being controlled by me anymore. They were being attempted to be controlled by them. So the deepest, most intimate thoughts that we can have are relating to our humanity and our sexuality. And they were telling me now that these were not mine anymore, they were theirs. I'm still affected by this. I'm still shaken. I am traumatized by this, frankly, because this is a crime against humanity. To not allow me to have a social evening with whoever I chose myself that evening, to not allow me to meet with them, to have any kind of physical interaction with them at all, is a deep violation of me and of us. It is not just a violation of our human rights, it's a crime against us, because it's saying that you have no humanity and individuality at all. You are controlled by another person 24 hours a day. This is a tragic event. I've mentioned the other things that I've been encountering, and I have been starved to death by these people for on and off. It just is a recurring pattern. I have now officially, I had already declared a hunger strike because the Department of Homeland Security in the United States, I tried to flee Canada on April 28th, 2017, and go to the United States. I was denied by the Department of Homeland Security and dumped back in here where they were planning to continue torturing me and murder me, the CIA in the United States. I attempted again on January 11th to go to the United States and cross over in the BC border here in Washington, and again, they declined me. They said that I was not allowed because I couldn't sustain myself in the United States. I hadn't proof of funds. Well, of course I couldn't, because I was applying for political asylum because I was fleeing as a refugee. No refugee under those circumstances can provide supporting documentation that they can provide for themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be fleeing the country that they're in right now. As I mentioned, stalkers. You have no time to yourself. You're constantly stalked and evaluated by someone else who will be reporting where I am. Unfortunately, this is what goes on in my life now. You can see, even coming up here into a tiny little hallway on the second floor of a community center, you're still not free. We'll try to ignore them and get on with what we're thinking. So see, it always works. They're so good at it. They always throw off my train of thought, and I always have to struggle to get back. Keep in mind, this has gone on for 4 years now. Let's just jump right into this then. I have been tortured and stalked and followed, and my life has been compromised to the point where I'm barely surviving. I have not had a full meal in over a month. I have been sleeping on the streets now for 2 months. All of my clothes were stolen. I do not have a warm bed. I am being murdered. I am being flogged and gang stalked, as you can see, by people 24 hours a day. Because I don't have my own place anymore and I'm out on the street, they can out gang stalk me 24 hours a day, which they do actually. They actually steal money from me when I'm sleeping. They put holes in my shoes so that my shoes are wet whenever I walk along the street. And as I pointed out to you today, the reason why I have this video is I'm not even allowed to have sex anymore. I'm not allowed to have a sexual fantasy anymore.